guys, this is Lindsay with Lindsay's Craft Studio, and today we are going to be making some paper snowflakes. I have my cat assistant here who is enjoying chewing on all of the paper, so we'll see if we can get this done without ruining any of the examples. Where there is paper, there will always be cats. So today, as you can see, dude, come on, man. He's also enjoying being behind everything because this has become kind of like a little fort so that you guys could see everything. I think he's gonna go make himself busy somewhere else, so we'll have a little bit of time alone. So I am Lindsay, and we're gonna be making two different kinds of paper snowflake today. So the one on the wall behind me is very big, as you can see. It's three-dimensional, so it's perfect if you have like storefront windows or if you happen to have gone back to an office and you're just looking to spread a little cheer. They look really striking from outside. I have made them for libraries with recycled book pages in all different sizes before. I've also made them out of like tissue paper, different colors of tissue paper with multiple layers, so they look really cool in different shades of blue and purple and silver, you know, if you find sparkly tissue paper. This is just regular 8.5 by 11 office copy paper. So as you can imagine, all the different pastel colors they have where you accidentally order blue when you meant to order white and it's been sitting in your office closet for months. Now you finally have something that you can do with all that extra paper. I know that happens. So we're going to start with those. And then we're going to end about halfway through this video with these. So if you're just looking for these, you can go ahead and fast forward. But for now, we're going to start with the big ones. These big ones require a square. So with your 8.5 by 11, you're going to fold yourself a square. Before we begin, we're going to make sure that we have a scissor. You're going to want a stapler for these big ones, some tape, and that's really it, nice and simple. For the other snowflakes later on, you're probably going to want some kind of writing implement. And I also have a glue stick, but you could use hot glue, you could use super glue, really whatever you would like. I'm just looking to spread a little holiday cheer nice and early this time. I put out a folded paper bat tutorial, I think, way too close to Halloween. So I'm hoping to get this out very, very early so that you guys can enjoy these the whole winter long. I've got a lot of cool things planned for crafts coming up in the winter, so keep an eye out on the website. But without further ado, we're going to get started folding these giant three-dimensional paper snowflakes. Now, when I first saw these years and years ago, I thought they were so complicated because they look like they should be, but they're really not. They start with a square. So you're going to take your 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and rather than driving yourself nuts trying to measure out 8.5 by 8.5, all I do is take the corner of my piece of paper and fold it over until it's level with the edge here. So you can see my edge is lined up along that bottom edge. And when you press that flat, you get this strange triangle shape here. But that actually is a perfect square. So without needing to measure, because personally I hate numbers, I hate measuring, I don't like doing it. I've never liked numbers. I hated math as a kid. I don't even have a ruler anywhere near me most days. I like to just eyeball everything. I think it's easier. So that is how to get a perfect square on a piece of paper every time. If you pull one corner over until it's level with the edge, it will give you a square. So with this scrap piece that you cut off on the edge, as you can see, there's probably 3 little squares worth of paper left. So if you wanted to make a smaller version of this big giant snowflake to hang with it, you can actually repurpose this scrap, so don't throw it away. But what you're going to do is you're going to trim that piece off with your scissor, and you have got your perfect square, nice and easy. So you're going to need 6 of these, and the reason we have 6 is because snowflakes have 6 points. Now, I don't exactly know the science behind that. I just know that Snowflake Bentley, when he was zooming in on snowflakes on slides years and years ago and taking pictures and kind of documenting that phenomenon, every single one he found had 6 points. So I'm sure if you've seen them on a window, you would agree. So I like to do things as realistically as possible if I can. It didn't work out with these guys that way, but these guys it definitely does. And it just helps hold the tension of the paper nicely so they hang up nicely. They're not kind of too floppy or wrinkly. I think if I added another section, they might have been too big and not had enough support to hang on the wall. So 6 sections is perfect. 6 squares. And once you've got your 6 squares cut out, you're going to make sure that they're all folded this way. And then you're going to fold them all in half. So the important thing to remember when you're cutting these sections is you're going to want to leave this middle piece here as a structural support. So don't accidentally cut through this line. You're going to take your scissors and cut on a diagonal here and here and here and here, long skinny strips. You can choose whether you want to do 4 cuts or 3 cuts. It's up to you. I wound up making 4 cuts, so I have 5 segments. So basically what you are going to wind up with is this guy. So as you can see, I've left this section alone. I haven't cut through here, and the reason for that is because you need to be able to unfold this and have them all stay attached. So these strips we're going to unfold here. That way you can see we've got this pretty, kind of looks like a wind catcher, you know, the ones that you find in the dollar store. But what you're going to do to create the effect behind me is you should have a center piece here. You're going to start with your center, and you're going to think of this line as like your left and right. So this is your center line. So you're going to fold this middle section to the left, kind of around your finger. So you should be able to put a little piece of tape there to hold it secure. And I'm talking like a little teeny tiny piece of tape, like next to nothing. This doesn't waste very, very much. You could try staples if you don't have tape, but it's a pain in the butt trying to get the stapler where it needs to be. So I find that tape is a better bet. Hi, Oliver. Don't eat that, please. I don't think we need to eat that. No, don't eat that. Cats, guys, am I right? He's in an odd mood today. He's very energetic. He's been running around all morning. I bet he wishes that I was playing with him with the laser pointer instead of sitting here trying to work, but it is what it is. He can have my full attention as soon as we're finished with this. So you pulled your, I'm trying to angle it so that you guys can see here. So the center goes to one side. Your next row goes to the opposite side. So you'll be alternating the way that you attach these sections. And that's what creates the really pretty cool positive negative space effect in the one hanging on the wall. So your next layer is over here. And we add a little piece of tape. And then there's another layer past that. And these go really quick once you get the hang of it. It's really annoying trying to figure it out the first time, but once you get the first one done and you're looking at it, you can whip through the next 5. There we go. Oliver Cat, I see you. I see you. I see you. Are you being a bad boy? Are you chewing? Can you go play? Thank you. All right. So this is what you should have. You should have one section like this, where you can see your center is on one side. If you only did 4 cuts, you'll have 1 fewer of these, and that's okay. It'll just be a little bit smaller of a shape, but you've still used the same size piece of paper, so your snowflake is still going to be just as big as this. So if you were doing this on a smaller square to make like a teeny tiny one, you know, you would fold your square over here, get a teeny tiny piece, do the same thing, fold it in half and cut on an angle. But you might, because it's so small, only have 1 or 2 little pieces. They look really cute. I actually meant to make some up for an example and I just ran out of time, but maybe I'll make some and put them on the Facebook within the next couple of days so you can see the size variety. So once you have 6 of these, you're going to begin attaching them to one another. And I like to work with them 3 at a time. The reason for that is because 3 winds up being half a snowflake. So what I did to attach these was I held 3 together by the bottom, making sure that they're all facing the same direction. So they all have the bigger side on the right and the littler side on the left. But if you manage to get them backwards, it's okay. I promise nobody's going to be looking that closely. You're going to put 1 staple in the bottom, and then you're going to very carefully, between the longest sides that are touching one another, staple them where they kind of crisscross over one another here. So that adds support. So this is kind of, you know, it doesn't matter what direction you hang it, it's still going to stand up nicely because it's kind of keeping the tension from piece of paper to piece of paper here. So I'm going to show you how to do that with the next half. I just wanted to explain what I had done to that one. So we've got 3 pieces here. I had 2 more already made up, so I'm making sure that they're kind of facing the same direction and leaning them against one another for now because they're not attached. And I'm just pinching them together, stapling here, then flipping it over, and as you can see, it's not as nicely attached as the last one. We're going to do that now. So you're going to take the longest side that you can find and attach it to the one next to it with a staple, carefully making sure to move your fingers out of the way. I've done that before. I think we all have. So now much better. You can see these are securely attached. Okay. So we have another half of a snowflake. So your first half and your second half, you're going to hold, you know, try and get them facing the same direction as always. You're going to hold them together in the middle. Put your stapler kind of in from the side. That way you're not crushing any of the paper to do this. Staple. Almost there, not quite. And now we're just going to do that same thing again where we attach one section to the one next to it. And this will unify your top half and your bottom half of your giant snowflake. All right, so we have a big giant snowflake, and as you can see, these look really pretty spinning in windows. You know, if you've got a fan going like I do while you work, they tend to move all on their own and create this really pretty shadow effect against the wall. So we've got matching snowflakes, nice and big. But like I said, you could feel free to mix and match colors here. They're really interesting. They tend to be really pretty in groups. So what I like to do is make like a big giant one and then a medium one and a small one and hang them all on the same string so that they wind up kind of playing nicely off of one another. So you could certainly do something like that. Actually, just going to check on my battery here. There we go. Perfect. All set. So we're going to move on to these guys. These guys look very complicated. They are not. They're much, much simpler than they appear. So they involve, you're going to start with a piece of paper like so. And you've got 2 options. For the size that I made, I actually folded the paper in half this way. And then I cut it in half so that I wound up with 2 long strips. And for reasons unknown to me, if you leave the strips the exact length that they are, the ratio from this length to width, Your snowflakes tend to kind of pop open. They don't lay flat. So what I did was I actually trimmed about 1/2 inch, maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch off of the edge of the piece of paper before I begin, just to prevent that. Because then the end of your snowflake will tuck in here nice and neatly. And you'll see what I mean as we start folding. If you wanted to, you could fold your piece of paper in half and then in half again. And these long skinny strips are what you're going to use, so you would actually get 2 smaller snowflakes out of a full-size piece of paper if you were looking to add to your snowflake collection here. So with your 2 long strips of paper, what you're going to do, just like we've done in other tutorials in the past, and just like I know you guys did in grade school, we're going to fold these paper fan style. So I have them stacked one on top of the other, so I know I get the same amount of folds in each piece of paper. You could do these separately if you wanted to. So we're just going to start folding small, like maybe trying to make sure that you guys can see it here, like 1/2 inch. Just about. And as I said, I never measure anything. I don't believe in being that stressed when I craft. So I'm just going to wing it and hope that by the time I get to the end, I don't have a weirdly short little piece. And honestly, if you do, you can always cut it off. Nobody's going to know. We're just folding back and forth until we reach the end here. That way you've got uniform folds here and there. This takes a little bit more time than the other style of snowflake, but it's so worth it. I've made all different designs on these. You know, if you have very fine paper cutting scissors, or if you wanted to make these out of tissue paper instead of out of regular computer paper, they're a little bit less tough to cut through and you can get finer details. One year I even hid the shapes of Olaf and Sven from a very famous Disney holiday movie. And the kids at my library loved looking for the shapes in the snowflake. So it's really all about what you cut. So I've got some diamonds here and a couple of half moons and a couple of triangles. But, you know, if you wanted to cut hearts or squares, you know, really any shape you put in there, once you unfold it, it looks way cooler than it does, you know, being folded up. So you have to kind of practice with them and be committed to making a few, because you don't find out what they look like unfolded until you unfold them. So it's kind of a surprise every time, which is fun. So I've got my 2 pieces of paper folded up accordion style, and what I'm going to do is just gently slide them out from one another. I tend to go this way so that they don't rip. And we're going to work with each half at a time. So find yourself, you know, whichever is the flatter of the 2 sides. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick which side is going to be your edge. And so for the sake of you being able to see this, I'm going to use a silver Sharpie. I don't want to use black. I feel like that would be too harsh, but the silver might blend in. We'll see. So you can decide kind of what shape you want to make for your edge. So I've got kind of a little bit of a curvy line there. I hope that you guys can see that. Just take my word for it that it's like a little scoop and then another curve heading up and over, kind of matching this, a little short line and then a bigger line. And then you can just put some like half circles, maybe some triangles, a diamond shape, you know, just keeping in mind that what gets left behind after you cut those shapes out is supposed to look like a snowflake. So kind of mix and match. Make it your own. So you're going to have to cut these halves at 2 separate times. So the easiest way to do this, even though they're supposed to match one another, is not to try and eyeball the same thing onto this other half. What you're going to do is you are going to cut out what you've drawn. And then before unfolding your piece of paper, you are going to then use that as a pattern to trace exactly what you've already cut out onto the next half of your snowflake. So you've got this weird, it kind of looks like a deer antler, but not quite. So this is going to be my top edge, and this is going to be my bottom, so it's going to have a hole, and there's going to be some cutouts throughout. So you could get way more complicated with this if you wanted to, I promise, but you know, I'm just giving you an example so you guys can build off of it. You have to kind of play with it to see. So try and make sure, you know, find wherever the end is on your master, and make sure that it's facing the same direction on the other one so that when you glue them together, they line up nicely and make sense. So I'm gonna match mine up here, like so. And then I'm just gonna trace that same exact shape onto the second folded half of my snowflake here. And then these come together really quick, I promise. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I know it's a lot of small detail, it's kind of hard to see, but it will be worth it. And the luxury of this being pre-recorded and on YouTube for you guys for free is you get to watch it over and over and over and try again and again. You can pause, you can fast forward right to where you need to be, so feel free to take your time with this. Also, if you are enjoying this tutorial, there is a tip link in the description. It is technically free to watch. You don't have to toss anything my way, but it does all go toward funding further free crafts and cool stuff for you guys to do, and all of the things that I make through my website, lindsayscraftstudio.com. So every little bit helps. So if you're enjoying this, if you wind up making a few, you might consider it, but if not, no worries. Just trying to bring crafts to all. All right, so we have our two nearly identical pieces here, and what you're going to do is you're going to stack them one to one. But first, you want to make sure that you put a little bit of glue along one of the sides. If my glue stick would cooperate here. There we go. This glue stick is on its last legs. I definitely need a new one. So we've got some glue, and we're going to join these two halves together. And you're going to want to press pretty firmly because we will be pulling on this to unfold it, and you don't want the glue to pop off. So if you wanted to, you could use super glue or hot glue. Just be careful not to overflow it all, because then your snowflake will be conjoined someplace that you don't want it to be conjoined. Okay. So this is a problem you guys may encounter. So when I was cutting here, this piece of paper has detached from the one next to it. And a good rule of thumb before you go ahead and fold everything and it's three-dimensional and it's harder to fix is to fix little problems like that as they come along. So what I've done is I've taken just a teeny tiny piece of tape, and I'm going to tape those two ends together. And now when I unfold, it's one long continuous piece, and you can't even tell where it was unless you're the one who made the snowflake, at which point you'll know, but nobody else will. And that's the important part here, right? So now you can see the point where they've joined is a little bit imperfect, but it won't really matter once they're nicely folded out. So what you're going to do with this for now is you're basically going to make a tube. You're going to overlap the ends, and they should line up pretty perfectly. And what you're going to do with that overlapped end is, you guessed it, we are going to glue it. And now you've got this weird tube. You know, very interesting. I mean, you could put it around a candle, you could use it for something else, or put it against a flat surface and push to open. Keep pushing, smushing your edges together until all of a sudden we have a snowflake. So as you can see, this one definitely came out different than the one that came before it, even though I swear I was cutting the same thing. I cut the same shape twice. I don't know how they came out differently, but that's exactly my point, is you can't really control snowflakes. They are what they are. But I think this one is just as cute as this one. You could very easily put a string through this and try and hang them up, but I feel like they work better flat. Because of the way that the paper is tensioned, they don't tend to lay flat once they're up off of something. You could sit there and try and glue the ends together and kind of gather them, and they might lay more flat for you. But I think these snowflakes are perfect stuck directly onto a window with some tape instead of free-form hanging. So that's also part of why I wanted to offer both of these tutorials at the same time, because these are for walls, for hanging off of your desk, or like I said, if you've got an office window or something that you're looking to decorate, they look great against a flat surface. For making different sizes of these, as I mentioned before, which you might have forgotten because there's been a lot going on, you could fold a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper in half and then in half again. And these would be your strips that you would use to make one that's about half the size of that. So you would have a few varieties. And as you can see, the long strips that we trimmed came out of the center of this. So if you wanted more of a center, if you want it to be more open in the middle, like most snowflakes actually are very open in the center, you could cut more away before you begin folding, and that will give you that effect. You could also try and cut more shapes out of the edge so you have a little bit more of a kind of delicate lace effect going on. The smaller the shapes that you cut when you're cutting out your pattern, the more delicate your snowflake will look. The bigger shapes, it tends to look a little bit blockier, but they all come out very pretty. And as you can see, they're a little bit simpler than you may have thought that they were. And they definitely add a different flair than just your typical flat paper snowflake that we all learned how to make when we were little kids. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed these free tutorials. As I mentioned, there is a tip link somewhere in the description to this video. So if you're so inclined, you know, no worries. I hate to repeat that so many times, but that's what the internet says to do when you're a small startup business. So here we are. So thank you guys for watching. Definitely tell your friends about Lindsay's Craft Studio, and there are lots of events coming up on Facebook. We will be painting some things, making some things. There's a lot of painted ornaments and painted holiday wine glasses going on. So if you're interested in those, follow me on Facebook at Lindsay's Craft Studio. I'm also on Instagram. There's a lot of behind the scenes photos of me and Oliver that wind up there. So definitely take a look. And happy holidays. I know they're so far off, but still, I like to start saying it now. Spread the cheer. Join me in crafting, and I hope to see you at another tutorial very, very soon.